one of the things that's bothered me from the beginning is, when did all of this began? Was the censorship set up as we moved into lockdowns already in place? Was there already a machinery in place that was designed to kind of throttle our accounts and otherwise ban us early on, or did it develop over time? It's a little confusing to me, only because I'm certain that in the early days of the lockdowns, there was a lot of self-censorship going on. And I had begun to speak out against the lockdowns, of course, from January, but then again in February. But then, the first week of March, I was screaming about the arbitrary shutdown of South by Southwest on March 8th in Austin, Texas. And I was stunned to feel as if I was completely alone within my community, right? We all had a community going into this COVID era that we had begun to sort of rely on and trust. And a lot of us in this room today had never heard of each other, right? I mean, a lot of us are just friends for the first time. And you're so right, Nick, that we all do feel a close friendship with each other. But it took a long time for us to discover each other. My community of friends all shut down. They self-censored from their very early age. And it had something to do with the feeling at the time that the country, if not the world, had gone on sort of this military-style footing. There was almost a feeling of martial law, a strong impression that we all had that if we said the wrong thing, we could get in trouble. And let's not forget that in those early times, the quarantine power of the state is actually quite powerful and capable of quarantining anybody and for any reason and any amount of people. I was aware of this, so I became actually very cautious myself. But even though I was one of the few people speaking out, now over time, for sure, and then once the vaccine came along, it became systematic and super institutionalized and very aggressive, and we have now a pretty extensive paper trail on that. But I think there's a lot to look back and discover about this relationship between self-censorship as a result of the fear that was instilled in the population at the time. And I'm pretty sure, I certainly felt it in the United States. I'm pretty sure it's felt all over the world that one wrong word and God knows what's going to happen to you.
Can I jump in there and just
Yeah.
remind you, when I teed this up, I pointed out the relationship between propaganda and censorship. Was the fear itself not the evil twin, propaganda, deliberately, creating that kind of environment where people self-censor, and that's,
That's right.
my point is that these things are hand in glove. And so if the censorship wasn't necessarily preordained or pre-coordinated, the propaganda certainly was.
Yeah, and it did work because we didn't really know. I mean, I remember distinctly feeling on March the 12th, as I was taking a train from New York out to Massachusetts, a real sense, not born of paranoia, but of knowledge that at any moment that train could be stopped and all the passengers put on another train and taken to a quarantine camp. That was true. And when the train landed, I remember just like hopping off the train and feeling like I was safe. I mean, this is true. You could say, well, you're a madman. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew those powers existed. So yeah, I mean, we were very aware. I will just finish out by saying, since Elon's taken over Twitter, my reach and impressions and all that stuff that you use to measure is up about 175%, which to me is not. It's not. I'm suddenly a compelling writer, and people. That's not it. It's very clear that I was targeted.